She walked through the heavy glass doors of the luxury hotel, just like she did every day. The lobby smelled of fresh flowers and expensive perfume. Everything looked perfect: golden lights, clean marble floors, and soft piano music playing from the speakers above. But none of it was for her. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't rich. She was just the girl in the black apron with a name tag no one ever read. She tied her hair back, grabbed the service tray, and stepped into the grand ballroom.
Awake.
Staff buzzed around like bees. The hotel was preparing for a big event in the evening. Everything had to look perfect: flowers in place, cutlery straight, glasses spotless, and she was in the middle of it. Wiping tables and picking up after people who didn't even say thank you. She had been working at the hotel for almost a year now. Morning shifts, night shifts, double shifts, she took them all. She needed the money. Rent wasn't cheap, and her small apartment wasn't much. But it was something. And she never complained, at least not out loud. Most guests didn't even notice her. She was just the waitress. They waved their hands, snapped fingers, spilled drinks, and blamed her when the food was late even, though she wasn't the one cooking it. But there was something they didn't know. Every night after her shift, when the ballroom was empty and the lights were dimmed, she stayed behind for a few minutes. She would walk quietly to the grand piano near the corner of the room. No one was there to stop her. No one really cared. And then, with tired fingers and a silent heart, she played. The piano was old, but beautiful. It had a deep, rich sound that filled the quiet room. She didn't play anything flashy, fast notes or show-off songs, just soft music. Music that made her feel something. Music that made her forget she was just a waitress. She learned to play as a kid. Her grandmother used to teach her on an old upright piano in their living room. Back then, she thought she'd grow up to be a musician, maybe even play on big stages in front of crowds. But life had other plans. Her parents struggled with money. Lessons stopped. The piano was sold. And after her grandmother passed away, the music faded too. Still, she never forgot how it felt to play. She taught herself in secret, watching videos, using cheap keyboards, and playing whenever she could find a piano like this one. No one at work knew about it. Not the chefs, not the other waiters, not even the manager. She kept it to herself. It was her little escape after long days of aching feet and forced smiles. Sometimes, the cleaning crew would hear faint music as they passed by. A few thought it was a recording playing in the background. But one old kitchen helper once caught a glimpse of her playing. He didn't say anything, just gave her a small smile and walked away. That moment stayed with her. Even though the job was tiring and the pay wasn't great, she kept going. Deep down, she held on to a quiet hope. Maybe someday someone would hear her play. Maybe one day she wouldn't have to serve at events. Maybe she'd be part of one. But for now, she cleaned up other people's mess, kept her head down, and waited for the ballroom to empty just so she could play again. She didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. All it would take was one chance. She didn't remember the first time she touched piano. She was too young, but she remembered how it felt. Like magic. Like the world became quiet and all the noise in her head disappeared. Her grandmother was the one who taught her, not a music teacher, not a professional. Just a kind, warm woman with old hands and a soft voice who believed music could heal anything. Their home back then was small and a little messy, but full of love. There was an upright piano in the living room, a second-hand gift from a neighbor who moved away. It had chipped keys and some notes that didn't sound right, but to them, it was perfect. Every afternoon after school, she would sit beside her grandmother and play. They started with simple tunes. She would press one key at a time, laughing when she hit the wrong notes. Her grandmother never got mad. She only smiled and said, "Play with your heart, not just your fingers." That phrase stayed with her. It was more than just music. It was a lesson in life. But life didn't stay gentle. When her grandmother got sick, everything changed. Hospital visits were long and quiet. The piano gathered dust. After a few months, she passed away, and the house didn't feel the same anymore. Her parents tried to stay strong, but things got harder. Bills piled up. There was no more money for school activities, let alone music classes. One day, the piano was gone, sold, to pay rent. She never forgot that feeling, an empty corner where music used to live. Like a part of her was missing. Even as she grew older, that memory stayed deep inside her. She tried to move on. She finished school, took up odd jobs, and eventually landed the waitressing position at the luxury hotel. It paid better than other places, and the tips helped her cover rent and groceries. She told herself she'd save up for a cheap keyboard one day, maybe find time to play again. But saving money wasn't easy. Something always came up. Rent increases, groceries, broken shoes, medicine. Real life was heavy. Still, whenever she saw the piano in the hotel ballroom, she felt something stir inside. It looked nothing like her old one. This one was shiny, polished, grand. It's the kind you see in movies. At first, she didn't dare touch it. But one night, when the room was dark and quiet, she sat down and let her fingers rest on the keys. They felt familiar, like shaking hands with an old friend. She pressed a few keys. Slowly, carefully. The sound was so beautiful it gave her goosebumps. She played a small melody from memory, one her grandmother used to hum while making tea. Almost cried. It had been years, but her hands remembered. That became her secret routine. After long shifts, when no one was around, she would play. Some nights for just 5 minutes, sometimes longer if the staff had gone home early. It wasn't for anyone else. No cameras, no crowd, just her and the music. It made her feel alive. Again, she didn't need sheet music. Everything was in her head, in her heart. She made up her own melodies, gentle ones, sad ones, peaceful ones. They told her story in sound. A story of someone who hadn't given up yet. People walked past her all day, treating her like part of the furniture. But none of them knew who she really was. She wasn't just a girl in a black apron carrying water glasses and wiping crumbs. She was someone with a dream buried deep, dream that refused to die. And while others saw the piano as just another fancy decoration in a fancy room, for her, it was a doorway. She just didn't know yet that one day, the doorway would open wide, and someone important would finally hear her. The morning of the big event started like any other for her. She arrived early, tied her apron, and started setting tables in the grand ballroom. But there was something different in the air that day. The hotel was buzzing with excitement. Staff were rushing back and forth. Flower arrangements were being wheeled in. The chefs were already shouting from the kitchen. Even the hotel manager, who normally walked around with a cold stare, looked nervous. This wasn't just any event. It was the biggest night of the season, a luxury charity gala hosted by one of the richest families in the city. There would be politicians, celebrities, business owners, and other powerful guests. Cameras would be flashing, wine glasses clinking, and everything had to be perfect. She didn't feel like she belonged in a room full of people wearing gowns and designer suits, but it didn't matter. She wasn't there to be noticed. Her job was to carry trays, clean spills, and move around quietly without drawing attention. That was her role, and she was used to it. The ballroom had been transformed overnight, golden. Chandeliers lit up the ceiling. Long dining tables were dressed with white cloth and crystal glasses. The grand piano stood proudly at the front of the room, polished until it shined. A small sign next to it read, "Live piano performance tonight." She stared at the sign for a moment, then looked away. That piano wasn't for her. A professional was coming in. Some well-known pianist flown in just for this event. She would never be allowed near it tonight, not with all the guests watching. By afternoon, the pressure started building. The manager walked around with a clipboard, pointing at every little thing. One of the new waiters accidentally dropped a fork, and the manager snapped at him like he'd broken a window. Everyone was walking on eggshells. Then, just before the guests were supposed to arrive, something happened. The pianist, the one who was supposed to perform, canceled. No one expected it. The manager got the call and stormed out of the kitchen. Phone still in hand. His voice was loud, angry, and full of panic. "He's not coming?" "What do you mean he's not coming?" The staff looked at each other. No one said a word. Apparently, the pianist had fallen ill and couldn't travel. There was no backup. No plan B. The manager began pacing. What are we supposed to do now? People are expecting live music. The donors are arriving in less than 2 hours. Everyone scrambled. Some staff tried calling other musicians, but no one was available at such short notice. Others suggested playing recorded music through the speakers, but the manager refused. This is a luxury event. We promised a live performance. She stood quietly in the corner holding a tray. Her heart was racing. The grand piano stood right there, empty, waiting. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a whisper inside her head saying, "What if?" But she didn't say anything. Who would take her seriously? She was just a waitress, not even a trained pianist. Just a girl who played in the dark when no one was looking. Then something unexpected happened. Anne, old kitchen helper, the same man who once saw her playing the piano after work slowly, walked up to the manager and said in a low voice, "She can play." The manager looked confused. "Who?" He pointed at her. "The waitress. She plays the piano. I've heard her. She's good." She froze. Her heart dropped. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to her. The manager raised an eyebrow. "Is this a joke?" She didn't know what to say. Her hands felt cold, her throat dry. But something inside her said this might be her only chance. And in that moment, everything started to change. She didn't expect anyone to speak for her, especially not the old kitchen helper. But now, there she was, standing in front of the hotel manager with everyone's eyes on her. The room, which had been loud and busy just minutes ago, had gone completely quiet. The manager looked her up and down, like he was trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke. "You can play?" he asked, his voice sharp and doubtful. She felt her throat tighten. Her palms were sweating. She nodded slowly. "Yes, I can." He raised one eyebrow. "How well?" She paused. What was she supposed to say? "I've been playing since I was a child. I know a few pieces, and some of my own." The manager didn't look impressed. "You're not dressed for the stage. We don't have time for mess-ups. This isn't a birthday party. These are high-profile guests." She looked down at her black uniform, her apron still tied around her waist, her work shoes worn out. She didn't look like a performer. She looked like what she was, a tired worker. But deep inside, something stronger pushed through the fear. She took a breath and said, quietly but clearly, "Let me try. Just once. If you don't like it, I'll stop." The manager sighed and looked at the kitchen helper, who gave a small nod. Then he turned back to her and said, "Fine, you've got 5 minutes. Don't embarrass this hotel." That was it. No encouragement, no warm words, just pressure. She walked slowly to the piano. Her heart pounded so loudly it felt like a drum in her chest. The ballroom still had some staff moving around, but most had stopped to watch. A few whispered to each other. Some looked curious. Others looked like they were waiting for her to fail. Her hands hovered over the keys. For a second she thought, maybe she should walk away. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe this was a mistake. But then she remembered her grandmother's voice. Play with your heart, not just your fingers. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began. The first note was soft, gentle. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully. The sound echoed through the large hall, filling the empty space like sunlight entering a dark room. She didn't play anything flashy. It wasn't a song people would find in books. It was her own something. She had written over time during lonely nights, after long shifts in silence. It was a piece full of emotionless hope, and the quiet strength of someone who kept going when life was hard. As the music flowed, the energy in the room shifted. The staff stopped working. The kitchen door stayed closed. Even the manager stood, still, eyes fixed on her. One of the waiters placed his tray down slowly, afraid to make any sound. No one expected this. The piano wasn't just making music. It was telling a story, her story. She played like she was alone, like no one was watching. Her eyes stayed closed, her fingers moving as if they had a memory of their own. Every note was honest. Every pause had meaning. She didn't rush. Didn't hold back. When she played the last note, there was silence. Total, still silence. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then someone clapped. Then another. And suddenly, the ballroom was filled with applause. Not just polite clap, I'm real. Loud, emotional applause. She opened her eyes in shock. People were smiling. Few looked teary-eyed. Even the manager looked stunned. No one had expected this from the girl who usually carried trays. In that moment, everything she had ever hoped for felt one step closer. And this was only the beginning. She sat frozen for a moment after. The last note faded into the air. Her hands were still on the keys, but she didn't dare move. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The grand ballroom, which had always felt so cold and distant, now felt different. It felt alive. The sound of clapping was still echoing. Some people even stood up as they clapped, their eyes wide with surprise. Few had tears on their cheeks. Others were just staring at her, speechless. She slowly stood up from the piano bench, her heart pounding hard in her chest. She didn't know what to do. Should she walk away? She wasn't used to this. She was used to walking quietly in the background, picking up empty glasses and staying out of sight. The hotel manager was standing at the side, arms crossed. For a second he looked confused, like he wasn't sure if this had really just happened. Then he nodded once, slowly, like someone who had just been proven wrong in the best possible way. She didn't expect applause. She didn't even expect anyone to like it. She had played from the heart, not for fame, not for attention, just honesty, just emotion. But somehow the crowd had felt it. The room quickly returned to its usual fast pace. Staff started moving again, the kitchen doors swung open, and the sound of clinking plates returned. But something had changed. Wherever she walked, eyes followed her. Some smiled, some gave her small nods, others whispered to each other, and then the guests started arriving, dressed in suits and gowns. They entered the ballroom with their heads high and voices loud. Cameras flashed as photographers captured the luxury and style of the evening. The event was now officially live, but one guest, a woman with silver hair and a long blue dress, walked straight to the piano. She placed her hand gently on the top and looked at her. "Were you the one playing earlier?" The girl nodded, unsure what to say. "That was not just music," the woman said. "That was something special. Thank you." Before she could even respond, another guest came up, and another. People she didn't know were suddenly shaking her hand, praising her, asking her name. She wasn't invisible anymore. The manager came up behind her. He looked serious, like always, but his tone was different this time. "You'll play tonight," he said, "all evening. No more waiting tables, just music." She didn't even know what to say. Her hands trembled a little, but she nodded. The rest of the night moved like a dream. She played while the guests ate, talked, and laughed. Soft background pieces at first, then more emotional songs. Every time she played, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Waiters paused near. Tables, guests leaned back in their chairs with closed eyes. The room was full of life, but the piano gave it a soul. Someone recorded her without her noticing. A short video clip of her performance was uploaded online that same night, showed her sitting at the piano in her black work uniform playing. With eyes closed, completely lost in the moment. The title simply said, "The Waitress Who Silenced a Room with Music." By morning, the video had gone viral. Thousands of people shared it. Some called her a hidden genius. Others said it was the most emotional performance they'd ever seen. Its messages began pouring in. Journalists, music lovers, teachers, even strangers from different countries. But she didn't know about all that. Yet she had just finished playing her final piece of the night. The ballroom was quiet again. The guests had left. The lights were dimming. She sat alone at the piano, her fingers resting gently on the keys, smiling quietly. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like a shadow in the room. She felt seen. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. Her body was tired, but her mind was wide awake. The night before still played in her head like a dream she didn't want to end. The crowd, the clapping, the way people looked at her, it all. It felt unreal. She checked her old phone, expecting the usual few messages. But her screen was full of notifications. Missed calls, messages, unknown numbers, links. At first she was confused. Then she opened one of the messages. A short video clip was attached. It was her sitting at the piano in her black work clothes, head down, fingers moving gently over the keys. Someone had filmed her during the charity event and posted it online. The caption read, "The waitress who played like a star." Her heart skipped a beat. The video already had over 100,000 views. She kept scrolling. People were leaving kind comments. "I don't even know her name, but this touched my soul. More real than any stage performance I've seen. This girl deserves the world." She sat there, still in her pajamas, phone shaking in her hands. For years, no one had noticed her. Now, strangers from all over were listening to her music, feeling something from it, sharing it with others. By midday, the hotel manager called her in. She walked through the hotel entrance, nervous but curious. She wasn't sure if she had done something wrong, but this time, no one ignored her. The front desk staff smiled at her. The kitchen team gave her a small round of applause. A few guests even recognized her and waved. For the first time since she had started working there, people weren't looking past her, they were looking at her. The manager was waiting in the office. He didn't yell, he didn't rush. Instead, he said, "The video's gone viral. People are calling the hotel, asking about you. Some think we hired you as a performer." She stayed quiet, then he continued, "I want to offer you something. You won't be a waitress anymore. You'll play piano in the lounge every evening. Live music, real guests, real stage." She blinked. "Are you serious?" He nodded. "You're good. Better than good. And people love it." She felt a mix of emotions, shock, joy, fear, but more than anything, relief. She didn't have to hide anymore. She didn't have to wait for the ballroom to be empty to play. Now she could do it out in the open. That night, she sat at the same grand piano. But this time, it wasn't after hours. The lights were on. The lounge was full. And all eyes were on her. She didn't dress fancy. She wore a simple black dress and tied her hair back. No stage makeup. No big show. Just her. The piano and her. Music. And when she played, it was the same. Honest, quiet, beautiful. More guests filmed her that night. More videos went online. And with each passing day, more people started following her story. Local newspapers wrote about her. One music teacher from a well-known school sent her a message offering free lessons. Another person offered to record her music professionally. The little dream she had kept, buried for years, was now being pulled out into the light. She still took buses to work, still lived in the same small room, still ate cheap meals and worried about rent. But something had changed inside her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt strong. She felt proud. She felt like maybe, just maybe, her life was starting to move in a new direction. And it all started with one quiet song on one unforgettable night. Weeks passed, and her life slowly began to change little by little. She still woke up early, and still rode the same bus to work. But now, she no longer wore her black apron. Instead, she walked through the hotel lobby dressed in simple but clean clothes, carrying only a small bag and a notebook filled with song ideas every evening. She sat at the grand piano not as a waitress sneaking after her shift, but as the hotel's official live performer. Guests looked forward to her music. Some came just to hear her play. They'd sit quietly, sipping their drinks, eyes closed. Listening as her fingers danced across the keys, it still felt strange sometimes. She would look around the room and wonder, how did I get here? It was hard to believe that not long ago she was wiping tables in the same room, barely noticed. Now people clapped for her. Some even waited after the performance just to thank her. But the biggest surprise hadn't come yet. One day, after finishing her evening set, the hotel manager walked up with a woman by his side. She looked official, smartly dressed, kind face, carrying a folder. The manager said, "She's from the Music Academy downtown. Seen your videos." The woman smiled and spoke gently. "We'd like to offer you a scholarship. Full music training, no fees. We believe you have real talent. Her breath caught in her throat. A scholarship? For her, she had never gone to music school. She thought it was too late, too expensive, too far from her reach. But now, someone was. Opening that door for her, she nodded slowly, eyes filled with tears. I'd love to. That night, she walked home in the dark with a smile she couldn't hide. The city lights blurred through her watery eyes, and the cold air didn't bother her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel stuck. She felt free. She started taking classes during the day and continued playing at the hotel in the evenings. Her teachers were impressed with her ear for music, her creativity, and her natural emotion. One of them even told her, "You play like you've lived the song." And maybe she had. Every note she played carried pieces of her life, her childhood, her struggles, her quiet moments alone at the piano after work. Her music wasn't perfect, but it was real. People felt that. More opportunities came. A local studio invited her to record a few original pieces. A radio station interviewed her. And one evening, during a small concert at the Academy, she played her grandmother's favorite song. After the final note, she looked up and saw the crowd giving her a standing ovation. But even with all the attention, she stayed humble. She still helped her old coworkers when the hotel got busy. She still thanked the kitchen helper who had spoken up for her. And once a week, late at night, when the ballroom was empty, she still sat alone at the piano and played for herself. No crowd, no lights, just the same girl and the music, because deep down, she hadn't changed. She was still that quiet girl who loved music more than anything else. Only now the world had finally started listening, and it all began with one small moment, when a tired waitress took a chance, sat at a piano, and poured her heart into a song, not for fame, not for attention, just for the love of music.